Hey guys, Tony here, drinking the Bourbs. Got the wall bar done, got that hung this morning. I like it. It's lopsided, but it's level. Those shelves are perfectly level, and it's holding weight. I think the two most important parts is that it's level and it's holding weight. So I wanted to celebrate this by doing a video. I wanted to do a long form video. I've done TikTok and Instagram and Clapper and all that, and I know YouTube has short form stuff too, which I should probably be using. But I wanted to do a long form video. Um, I figured there was no better way to start that off than to do a Bourbon 101. I've seen some comments on some of the videos I've done on other venues, and I believe there are some, I don't want to call them misconceptions, but just a little bit of misinformation out there. Somebody probably had a buddy that did the Bourbon Trail, and I mean, I can tell you, when I did the Bourbon Trail, I came back with some blended ideas of the basic rules of bourbon. Um, and over time, I educated myself and got, more familiar with the actual rules of bourbon, and then the rules that go with some other terms like bottled and bond. That one tends to leak some rules in. People, get that idea blended, but neither here nor there. So a little background on me: I got into bourbon about 7 years ago. My wife did not put a leash on it, and now we have this kind of stuff sitting in the house, and I make trips down to Lexington and buy barrel staves and barrel lids, and I've got a garage full of crap. So, um, but anyway, I really, really got into the bourbon stuff. I'm super psyched about the number of people that are coming into the community right now and how passionate everybody is really getting about it, and the fact that this distillate that used to be shot in bars while people were playing pool is now becoming this great big thing that we can gather around, and the number of bourbon bars that have opened up is just amazing, and the stuff that they're doing, uh, their little uh, their little change ups that they're putting, their spins that they're putting on old fashions and Sazeracs and Manhattans and just all of it. It's wonderful. I love it. I couldn't be happier. I wish people would stop chasing the bottles that I love and driving the prices up. But you know what? It's a small price to pay for the community that is out there now. But within that community, like I said, I think there's some misinformation. So without further ado, let's get to the five basic rules of bourbon. Now, I want to start this with a rule that doesn't just apply to bourbon, this applies to all whiskeys. Has to be bottled at more than 80 proof, or 80 proof or higher. Not more than 80 proof, but 80 proof or higher. If you bottle lower than 80 proof, it cannot be a bourbon at all. But it's not even really a whiskey. So, uh, now let's bring it around to the bourbon rules. Okay, so that rule applies outside of the bourbon world, but it also applies to the bourbon world. The bourbon world rules has to be made in the USA. That's rule number one. Bourbon was made the national spirit, and as such, bourbon has to be made in the USA. Now, legally, bourbon has to be made in the USA, but it really only applies to the consumption of it in the USA as well. Because I can take a bottle of any other kind of whiskey I want, slap bourbon on it, sell it in Germany, and there's no legal ramifications on that. Bourbon has to be made in the USA, but I can sell bourbon outside of the USA. That's not bourbon. Um, so the labeling of bourbon is really only important here, but made in the USA, rule one. Rule two is that you have to have at least a 51% corn mash bill. Now, the mash bill is the grain makeup of what they're going to use to make the distillate. And so the other primary things that they use are rye, wheat, and barley. And they can use those in any percentage they want and in any combination they want outside of the 51% corn mash bill. So 51% corn is the most important part of that. They usually come in significantly higher than that. Most mash bills would be 60% or more on the corn. But I've seen a few of them where they fall in on that lower side, go really, really heavy on the rye to make a really, really spicy bourbon. And I love those too. I love ryes, so the really spicy bourbons are great. McKenna 10-year was the first high rye I had, and that's when I realized I really liked that peppery bite. So anyway, rule 1, made in the USA. Rule 2, 51% corn mash bill. Rule 3, you cannot distill bourbon to higher than 160 proof. So during the distillation process, I can't go higher than 160 proof. And it wouldn't behoove me to, really. You're gonna get a cleaner distillate by going up to that level, but you can't go higher than that level. And when you barrel it, rule 4, you cannot barrel it at higher than 125 proof. So even if I distill it up to 160, I'm gonna have to water it down to 125 to put it into a barrel. Now, this brings us to the first implied rule of bourbon. The only thing you can add to bourbon is water. You cannot add any other adjuncts, not during the distillation process, not during the aging process, not after the aging process. You can only add water to bourbon. So, distill it up to 160, I can add water to knock it back down to 125, but that's the only thing I can add. Barrel it at 125 proof. Once again, that's rule 4. Rule 5, it has to be aged or barreled or casked, whatever term you want to use. We'll do a terminology video another time. It has to be aged, barreled, casked in a new charred oak barrel. New charred oak barrel. I didn't say anything about American oak. One of the comments that I saw was about something that was done in a French oak barrel, and they said that's not bourbon. It is. A new charred oak barrel, that's the rule. There's no stipulation on the oak, just new charred oak barrel, which means the barrel cannot be used. It cannot have had another distillate in it. Now, those barrels are prepped with water before the bourbon is put into it, and that's just to get the wood to swell and close up. But new charred oak barrel. So that's the rule. Another thing you're going to notice I did not mention in those rules, because those are the rules. Those are the rules for bourbon. Now, technically, if I have a 51% corn mash bill that I distilled in the USA to 160 proof, watered it down to 125, put it in a new charred oak barrel, as soon as I put the bung in the side of that, that is casked. That is now a casked barrel of whiskey. I can pop the bung right back out, pour it out, I have bourbon. There's no aging statement at all. Now, straight bourbon whiskey is 2 years. Bottled in bond is a minimum of 4 years. I can call a 5-year distillate straight bourbon whiskey. I could call a 10-year distillate bottled in bond. As long as it meets the other bottled in bond rules, that's another video. But the 5 basic rules, made in the USA, 51% corn mash bill, distilled to no higher than 160 proof, cast at no more than 125 proof, in a new charred oak barrel. I have bourbon. So, I hope that gets us down to the basics. Like I said, terminology, aging, proof points, all that kind of stuff. Those are other videos. I'm going to try to put out a video every single week. You know what? Let's take try out of there. I'm going to put a video out every single week, even if it's just a video explaining to you why I didn't make the video. So, tune into my YouTube. You can find me on there. If you found this, you know where it's at, because this is on YouTube. I'm going to put this up on my website too, though. drinkingthebourbs.com. You can find me on Instagram at drinkingthebourbs. You can find me on TikTok at drinkingtheburb. I couldn't put the S on it. It was one character too long. On Twitter, drinkingthebee. I'll put all these at the end of the video. But yeah, I hope you come back. I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope you enjoy the future content. If you do, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe, put on the alert bell, all the other stuff that the professional YouTubers say. If I left some professional YouTuber stuff out, put that in the comments below. I need to learn this. But anyway, I hope to see you guys on future videos. Cheers.